All right, I'll go ahead and call the July Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Thank you very much for attending, folks, either in person or by virtual means. We have 3 in-person presentations today, 2 by staff and 1 from our guest, Kevin White, public finance attorney with Butler Snow LLP. He will be presenting information about the use of housing authority bonds for the acquisition, renovation, and rehabilitation of Lakewood Plaza apartments, which are located in Norfolk. This is our 4th virtually held meeting, including the June 25th meeting for our FY 2021 budget adoption. Unfortunately, this may be the new normal on how the board conducts its meetings for at least the next few months, if not for the remainder of the year. As commissioners, we do emphasize and understand the toll this prolonged state of emergency has taken, not only on our residents, but on the NRHA staff as well. To ensure that our residents, especially our senior residents, don't become isolated or become overcome with the magnitude of this pandemic, staff continues to do wellness check phone calls to our seniors and at-risk residents. Additionally, staff continues to periodically send out communications to our residents that includes tips on maintaining good mental health through this pandemic. The information also includes resources and mental health service providers for those who may seek additional counseling. Mr. Jackson, during his remarks, will speak further about how NRHA staff are dealing with and working through these unprecedented times. And finally, on a positive note, Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority's Client Services announced that Maya Prasad is this year's 2020 E.L. Ham and Associates Scholar. Maya is a graduating senior at Maury High School with a 3.9 grade point average, membership in the National Honor Society, the Medical Health and Specialties Program at Maury, and the first ever student representative of the Norfolk Council of PTA. She resides with her mother, a younger sister and brother in Grandy Village. Her scholarship will allow her to attend Old Dominion University beginning this fall. Maya said that since the age of 11, she has set a goal of becoming a doctor and hopes that her hard work pays off. She wants to open her own practice and provide affordable health care to those living in low-income communities and under challenging conditions. Congratulations to Myra. I'll now move on to the agenda, and I'll invite any comments on the minutes from our last board meeting, which was June 11th, which I believe are on page 3 of your information. I got it. There are appliances from hell. You can cuss at them all you want; they still won't do what you want. So, any comments? And I'll take yes.
Motion we accept.
All right, a second.
Second.
Ms. Carnes.
Mr. Albert?
Aye.
Ms. Arrington?
Aye.
Mr. Gresham?
Aye.
Ms. Purrier?
Aye.
Mr. Benassi?
Aye.
Mr. Dillard?
Aye.
Mr. Musacchio?
Aye. Secondly, we have the minutes of our approval of the 2021 NRHA budget, which are on page 11 in your documents. Any comments on that? All right, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Ms. Carnes?
Mr. Albert?
Aye.
Ms. Arrington?
Aye.
Mr. Gresham?
Aye.
Ms. Purrier?
Aye.
Mr. Benassi?
Aye.
Mr. Dillard?
Abstain.
Mr. Musacchio?
Aye. All righty, thank you. Yeah, just a couple of comments because we are in the virtual. For folks in the room, please keep your informal conversations back and forth to a minimum, simply because they're picked up and making a bunch of background noise. For those in the virtual part, if you have, please look at Got the wrong one.
You want me to say it for you?
Yes.
Who are participating online and have a question or comment, please type your question into the box on screen on your internet panel. If you're participating in the audio only mode over the phone, please press *3 to ask a question.
Yes, thank you, Jen. Sorry, I had the wrong, what I was supposed to say thing. Now we'll get back to the real thing, and that's Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, everyone. A couple comments that I wanted to touch on this morning. The first being the town hall that we had last Friday. I don't know if you all had the opportunity to listen in or view in on the town hall. And basically, the purpose of the town hall was to try to talk about where we were, the housing authority, in terms of our operations and looking toward reopening, and also trying to address some of the staff's fears as we continue on throughout this pandemic, specifically regarding reopening, because that, at least at that state, maybe about a month or so ago, I think we were all looking toward to possibly some type of reopening posture for staff. The city and other cities around here have gone through that same process. And so we also, what we did is we conducted a survey because we wanted to make sure that, we address, if we're asking our staff to come back, we wanted to make sure that we, as best as possible, addressed any of their concerns. And, by and large from the survey, most of our employees were concerned about coming back and being exposed. And so with the town hall, we just tried to give them an idea of what our expectations were in terms of reopening. One of the primary drivers for the reopening was that HUD at the beginning of the pandemic, HUD had instituted a waiver on a lot of their requirements going forward. The waiver was set to expire when they set it at the end of this month. So we, realizing that the possibility that we would have to have some staff on hand, we were sort of planning on what would we need in order to get the work done if HUD was going to let these waivers expire, because we didn't want to get behind the 8 ball and have all this work and inspections and paperwork to be done. So that was really the primary driver for really our conversations about reopening. In addition to, we have some critical support areas in our operations that we probably need to have some type of staff presence here. But once the HUD waivers were extended out through the end of the year, that sort of took some of the pressure off on us having to call people back.
Is that the end of the calendar
The
year?
end of the calendar year, yes. So those were extended to the end of the calendar year, which, like I said, really helped us in terms of trying to address the issue, having at least some staff back to be able to address some of the backlog of things that we had to do under normal circumstances. So with that really helped, but still we still have some what we call mission or some critical things that we still need to continue doing. In terms of maintaining certain operations, in terms of we still do checks, we still do some landscaping, trash pickup, we still service work orders, we still have to process paperwork from residents, and just still things that we felt like that we have to maintain. And also when we started looking at it just from a broader picture, we really haven't stopped working, because one of the things that I was able to do at the town hall was to talk about the number of things that we've been able to accomplish while we've been in this, in this state, this mission critical state. So we've actually not really stopped working. We may have curtailed some things just for the mere fact that, just trying to protect staff, trying to protect the public, not really having any guidance on how do we address issues in the workplace. I mean, we've been trying to be guided by CDC guidelines, state guidelines. And luckily, yesterday, there was a press release that came out that said that in the absence of any federal guidelines, the state of Virginia is actually going to implement workplace safety standards, which we feel like that are going to really help. And basically what that says is it's Virginia workers, the first in the nation safety rules will protect Virginia workers by mandating appropriate personnel protective equipment, sanitation, social distancing, infectious disease preparedness, and response plans, record keeping, training, and hazard communication of workplaces across the Commonwealth. And then the governor went on to say, workers should not have to sacrifice their health and safety to earn a living, especially during a pandemic. So we think that's really going to help. It's going to help the standardize, because like I said, we've been trying to, outreaching to other authorities, looking at the city, and, all the plans are sort of different to some degree, but we didn't know what it would take that would really give our employees, if we had to call some back, what kind of standards would we have to have in place in order that they would have to be confident that we're doing the best that we can to protect them, especially any of our positions that interact with the public. So I think what the governor's done is going to be really good in terms of it helps the employers, because we know what standards that we have to have in place in order to be able to have staff come back. And it also protects the employees, because if the employer isn't up to standards, they have a way to address that. I think there's a complaint mechanism. They can actually address the state's workforce safety board and say, hey, our employers are trying to get us to go out into these, unsafe environments. And these guidelines are enforceable by the state. So I think employers can be sanctioned if you don't implement the standards that are to come out from the state. So I think that's really going to help us, because like I said, we're going to have to, in some instances, staff are going to have to come back. I leave it up to the directors, because they're familiar with their particular operations, even though I continue to emphasize that, hey, if the work can be done at home, do it at home, if we can, for the most part. If there's if there's work that needs to be done, it's at the work site, the physical work site, they have to come in, but we'll try to minimize it. We'll try other means to get it done. They don't have to be like here, for the entire 8 hours. Maybe there's some 40 hours per week. Maybe there's opportunities for staff. Like I said, I'm leaving that up to the directors, but that's what we're trying to do, is to make sure that the employees are safe, and at the same time that whatever minimal work that we need to get done, that we get it done. And the town hall in itself wasn't basically the town hall format, because we just had a lot of unanswered questions that we were sort of afraid to open it up to sort of a town hall. We're still working on policy kinds of issues. We were able to address some. There's still some that we're still working on. But what the goal is, that sort of what we're looking at is sort of our reopening, that we're going to take a look at things as they are, or as they evolve at the next 60 days. We're going to take a look and see how things are. Things may change before then. I mean, we may go back to phase 2. You just never know, especially with the uptick of cases in Norfolk, especially. So anyway, that like I said, with the implementation of the governor's guidelines, I think it's going to really help, and it's going to make everyone feel a lot more safer, especially if they have to come back, knowing that there's an outside body, the state of Virginia, who's overseeing everything in terms of employee safety. Next item I wanted to talk about was the HUD eviction moratorium. I know that that's going to end, I think it's July the 24th. And we've seen what's been happening in the private market in terms of, especially in Virginia. I think they had a eviction moratorium through the end of June. That's since expired. I know the governor had been trying to plead with some of the cities and counties, hey, is there, can you, on your own, can you push that, moratorium out a little further? But I think that, private landlords, I think that, I think they were going to contest it in court, saying that it was some type of takings. So anyway, the courts have seen sort of a record number of eviction proceedings. I mean, in some cases, majority of cases they've been either dismissed or there's been continuances, but for the most part, there's a high percentage of evictions that have gone through. And so there's a concern that there's going to be this, what they call a tsunami of evictions and people looking for affordable housing. I know the state put some money out to sort of help with residents who may be going through that. And also we in conjunction with the city, we worked to help design a program that the city received some funds through their CARES Act, that we were able to design a program that'll help low-to-mod families with rent, mortgage, and also utility assistance. And I think it's like $1.3 million that we have available for that. With our federally assisted residents and clients, we know that the moratorium is going to end on the 24th. We've been hearing that some of the residents were thinking that the moratorium meant that they didn't have to pay rent for those periods, but that's not the case. The rent continues to accrue. I mean, there's no fees or anything like that. The expectation is that when that moratorium ends, that they still are obligated to pay the rents. Now, we're implementing some measures, a lot of flexibility to make sure that that when the moratorium ends, that we're not expecting everybody to be able to write a check for the past 2 or 3 months. That more than likely there are going to be payment arrangements, which actually the payment arrangement that we had set up was cited by HUD as a best practice, meaning that we're extending normally the payment agreements for 4 years. We actually extended that out a lot further. Also, under the conventional payment plan, we require a lump sum payment. We're not doing that anymore. So we're making it easier for the residents to be able to catch up over a longer period of time. And there's other things that we're going to take a look at amongst our when we have our meeting next week, we're going to take a look at. We're also trying to encourage the landlords, even though I think they continue to get their part, the HUD part of their payment. Some of the residents were still under the moratorium and they may not have paid. So we're trying to encourage the landlords to do the same thing, to try to implement payment arrangements for that period of time when the moratorium was in place. So we're just, like I said, that hopefully there won't be too much disruption with our residents in terms of when this moratorium ends, but we know that it's going to, on the private market, there's going to be a major disruption. I mean, I've gotten a number of calls now from families from all over knowing that they're going to have a problem maintaining their current residence, so they're out looking for housing assistance. And then the last thing I wanted to
Wait a minute, Ron, did you say that you got calls from landlords or from tenants?
No, from people looking for housing who don't have housing. Just emails, and people are. I mean, there was one email that I got that included practically every housing authority in the United States. I mean, they're people. I mean, they're just they're looking for assistance because they know that they probably some states. I don't know if all the states did enact a moratorium, but we know the number of people who lost jobs or lost their hours and things like that. So it's just from.
Okay.
And the last thing I want to talk about, I know that we had talked about a retreat and possibly in September, but the way things are, and I know how retreats are traditionally held, or they're pretty much in person. Also, there's a couple other things worth considering. I know that in terms of the scope of the retreat, I know that there were some issues that amongst, the board amongst themselves, like race, inclusion, diversity, that amongst other things that we want to talk about, which would include like a strategic plan, something that would help guide the agency going forward. All those things would, require your input as well. We also are, I would think would be a part of that is what we're doing is we have the organizational assessment that I mentioned. We're in the final stages of trying to close that out. We have received some proposals and but we still have some ongoing questions that we need to answer before we could actually establish a deadline. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to finalize that. And my thought is that also be a part of the retreat because there's going to be some valuable information that you all need to consider whenever we talk about staffing and things like that, organization going forward. So I saw that as being a part of the retreat. And in terms of the timing, I don't know if it would fit into September. Also, given the fact of, with the pandemic and everything like that, and I don't know, that would be something that at least Jen and I would have to look into in terms of holding a virtual. I don't know how the practicality of that is. So I'm thinking that at least if we start thinking about maybe the early part of next year, possibly, but it's just hard for me to see that we could have something like that, something of that type of importance that you really would need the time to really different parts of a retreat that you all would have to really get into. It's just really hard for me to see that we could carry it off in the sort of in the platform that's needed to be, which more than likely is going to have to be sort of in person, and then just the time it takes. So I just want to solicit what do you all think?
My colleagues with whom I've spoken about coming and doing a retreat for us, none of them are doing face-to-face work right now. They've all said we're not doing that. We may be after the first of the year. So I think your instincts around that are well-founded.
Okay.
I would like though to see it perhaps, and I test the temperature of the group here, if we couldn't do at least one Zoom session around, race and diversity and inclusion or how we want to frame that. But it would not be, obviously face-to-face in person is ideal.
Okay.
But I think I still want to kick this can down the road. Yeah. And so, I think that there are really good people who do this, who do it via Zoom. And so if there's an interest in that, maybe we set a date on a Saturday or, for a couple of hours, and then I'll see if, I'll see if folks are available or interested. But obviously I defer to the thoughts of the group.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I would suggest working backwards from the people you think can do it, when are they available?
Okay.
And then we'll match up with what they can do.
Okay.
So we would just be.
I'm sorry, in terms of identifying a facilitator, this would be a public process. So we need to figure out that piece as well, and I'm happy to
talk to the chair and Ron after this meeting.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Okay. That's okay with everyone? If Joe has any?
Other comments? Okay. Anything else, Mr. Jackson?
And then the last thing.
Okay, thanks, Justin.
Okay, but that's all I have.
All righty, thank you very much. Commissioner comments?
I have, I think 3, because I kind of spoke to first. The other one is, as I was listening to Mr. Jackson talk about the moratorium on evictions. And you talked about what the expectation was as it related to whether the money was still owed. They thought the moratorium meant we don't have to pay rent, you know, they didn't understand that the rent was still building up, you know, and so it behooves you not to hold the rent if you got money. But my point in that is, I see a lot of initiatives like that for some reason, I don't want to say the communication is bad, because I think one of the things that happens, and I realize this when I make a comment about something that's not happening, it's almost as if I'm criticizing the staff or the people responsible for it, and I'm not. I'm simply saying what has presented to us is an opportunity to maybe enhance what we do, because we see that it's not having the desired effect. And so I just would like to see us continue to search for ways to communicate more exhaustively the issue, because had you not said that, right? And I used to be in property management, but had you not said that, I wouldn't have thought about it, about whether the rent was still occurring, right, and they were going to owe it at the end of the moratorium. Now, I mean, I know it made sense. Being a landlord, I know I ain't gonna give you all these months free, right? So I got my mortgage still and my maintenance and all of this, but I wouldn't have thought about it until you said it. You know, it was just and so I think there are ways that we can at least try to find to engage, communicate more exhaustively, deeper.
Yeah, we did. I know we did. I know one of the things we saw was like our accounts receivable was one thing we saw. It's like people may be thinking that they don't have to pay, and we're seeing our receivables go up. So we did some communications out just to remind them we saw that, right, that they may be a misunderstanding. Even we sent out another one a couple of weeks ago, just letting folks know that, even though HUD they extended the waiver, that waiver did not include the moratorium. They're two separate things.
Yes, yeah, Ron, and see, you went right to what the point I was trying to make, which the point I was trying to make was, I'm not saying that we didn't do what was required of us, but obviously, it didn't hit the target. I mean, and so all I'm saying is, let us continue to look for ways to drill even deeper. I'm not criticizing that we didn't do something, and so I'm simply saying, if you continue to do what you always done, you'll always get what you always got. And so, and so as our environment changes, as the people change, as all of these things change. I mean, I told a colleague of mine, not recently, that we've been criticizing young African-American males and females, colleagues of my era, about sagging pants and about dressing provocatively. Yeah. But who is leading the change for us right now? Who is leading this? It's not us. It's not my colleagues. It's the same young people we've been criticizing about sagging pants and provocative dress, who are extremely socially conscious. And so all I'm saying is, let's continue to look for new norms and ways to do things. The other thing is, I am always not sure about why the upkeep of our properties is so challenging. I mean, is it a money issue? We're not getting enough from HUD for maintenance? I mean, or is it, I know our managers have a limited budget for grounds maintenance and so much for, a building upkeep, but it just seems like our properties really look bad. I mean, there's not one. And I drive through them.
You mean like that? I
mean the upkeep, the grounds, the buildings. I drive through them and they look bad. And I see people working, I know the guys are working. I see them picking up paper in the morning if I drive through. In the afternoon, I see people, maintenance men, going into houses with boxes. I know we are doing what we should be doing. But, and I also know this. I also know that we have to find a way to hold residents more accountable for the property. That's it. For the properties that they live in. So when the front of a building 2 inches from your front door is defaced, whether you did it or not, you live here. And we expect a certain level of responsibility from you. And we gotta have those conversations. I know they're tough, but we gotta have them. And then I am, this third thing I'm gonna reserve because Don and I may get a moment after the meeting, and I don't wanna open that up without first talking to him. So that's my comment.
I just want to join with Alfonso on it, maybe from a little bit different perspective, that I've heard a lot about people gaming the system. You know,
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Washington threw out a lot of money during a political season, to make things happen, and people are trying to find every way they can to game that system.
Absolutely. And that goes to something I didn't say, which is both things can be true.
Yeah.
People can be gaming the system, right?
Well,
and not understanding.
And that's my point. Also, is this Redevelopment Housing Authority, just like our residents, we're I don't know what to call it, but victims of what's coming down to us. And Ron and them are having to adjust on the fly to so many changes. And we really need to be vigilant that we don't allow abuse.
I agree.
Nor do we cut off legitimate and healthy needs.
I agree. 100%.
Oh, and I just want to follow up on your Alfonso, on your comments about the grounds. I know we've had some challenges, and especially with the staffing and things, and we've tried to with the grounds and things. And I know that people are home, so that's created another challenge in terms of just the debris and things like that, and us trying to address just making sure that things are maintained. And it is a cooperation between us and the resident, but we'll definitely try to do a better job of emphasizing that, especially amongst the residents, and understanding their part to play to make sure that their area stays clean.
Yeah, that's, to be honest, that's one of the fears people have about Section 8 folks going out into other communities. Right. They say, oh, I don't want somebody who's just going to litter and not maintain a facility.
What you just said, Ron, and the fact that you said it, it's why I think we need to start looking at a new norm. And I say that because I think sometimes we get lulled into this false it's not zero sum, or it's not either or, it's not us or them, it's not this continues to happen even though we're doing this. It is, let's look at this as an objective problem from all sides. Let's not take a position, but let's look at this as an objective problem and say, understanding all the dynamics surrounding this problem. The fact that we're doing everything we're supposed to do, the fact that the people are being irresponsible on that end, the fact that there's only limit. Let's look at it from all of those scenarios and say, now how do we solve it? And not look at it from a point of, defending our team, and just look at it as an objective problem. I think we'll get deeper toward resolving it. So it's a solvable thing. He'll tell you. And you're doing it now. Isn't it solvable? Yeah. When you got to worry about curb appeal, can't you keep it up? Yeah. You better know it. Yeah. But if you don't have to worry about that,
Well, I think the real key, as we've said many times, most we can do is minimize the opportunity for mischief. And so I think Alfonso is correct. We should address each and every one of these with the realization that there will be some people who will game the system. And again, what I've always said, oftentimes, when you have to take a very severe action, you want to be able to say, despite my efforts, this didn't happen. So the next question is, what were your efforts? And so again, I think if we can be clear as to here are the things that we did to avoid where we are today. And again, I think that's going to take some real discussion about what are those efforts to avoid us getting to a particular point. What did we do to minimize the opportunity for us being here, realizing that there are going to be situations that no matter what we do, we're going to be there. So again, I think, thank you for putting that in perspective, and we'll have further discussions about what are those things to say despite our efforts. And we'll fill in the blank of what those efforts were. No, thank you. Other comments, Commissioner? All right, then let's go ahead and go into the development. The activities report is on page 19. But now we're actually going to, there are no comments about that. Then let's go ahead and look at the resolution about the issuance of bonds. And I guess I'll ask Mr. White to come on up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, it's 22 in your packet.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me. I'm Kevin White with Butler Snow. I'm an attorney that focuses on public finance transactions, bond transactions. I'm here representing Evergreen Real Estate Group out of Chicago. On the phone is Carissa Stone Acox, who's a personnel from Evergreen, and can answer some questions if there are technical questions about the project, but I'll explain as much as I can. I'm here to present this inducement resolution where Evergreen is asking for your support as a conduit issuer of bonds that will be sold in order to finance the acquisition, renovation, and rehabilitation of a project known as Lakewood Plaza Apartments. It's located over on Tidewater Drive. It's sort of between Waynes Creek and Norfolk Collegiate Lower School, if you know where I'm talking about. It's a high-rise apartment building with 200 units and is geared towards residents that are 62 years of age or older. And it is an affordable development. The reason we're here is to ask you to serve as the pass-through issuer for tax-exempt bonds under Section 142D of the Internal Revenue Code, which allows for a qualified residential rental project exempt facility bonds. And those bonds, when they're issued, you have to also file and record a land use restriction agreement to ensure affordability of the units based on a statutory requirement of a percentage of the units being rented to folks with a either 50 or 60% less than the area median income. So to do this, because Virginia and federal law requires a public hearing, we'll ask after my presentation to open up to any comments from the public over the phone. During the pandemic, the IRS and state have allowed for telephonic public meetings and comments. We published a public hearing notice in the Virginia pilot, just as you always would before the pandemic, and that was published on July 3rd and July 10th in accordance with Virginia law and federal law. Also, the website for the authority has a phone number for folks to call in and access to ask questions, which we'll ask for again after my presentation. So, this will be, again, a conduit bond issue where the authority serves as basically the go-between between the purchaser of the bonds and my client, which will be obligated to pay debt service and comply with the land use restriction agreement and so forth going forward. The amount of the bond will be up to $35 million. It may not be exactly that amount, but that's the maximum that we would ask for the bond to be. There's some language in the resolution about that tracks federal law on being able to use bond proceeds to reimburse expenditures that were made up to 60 days before the date of this resolution. So that I'm not sure if there have been really significant expenditures prior to today, but this would allow for reimbursement to some degree by bond proceeds for prior expenditures. One of the sections of the resolution is where the borrower has represented that they'll pay all the costs of issuance, like my fee and fees of other folks, and also will pay the administrative fee to the authority that's required by the authority. And then finally, the last bit of the resolution talks about the limitation of liability of this authority. It's just a pass-through conduit issue, so the authority is not on the hook and the city is not on the hook for any payments or liability. And then also in accordance with law, this will have to go to the city council because you have to have an elected body to approve a bond issue like this. So we've, in the resolution, it authorizes your executive director and officers to forward the necessary paperwork, which I've provided to your council. This is not the end of the story. This is really just an inducement resolution. So after today, after the council approves the transaction, there will be placement of the bonds with a purchaser, and the bond documents will be put together. We'll draft them, negotiate them, and then we'll come back, I believe, at the September meeting to ask for final approval of those documents. And Ms. Carnes will have an ample opportunity to review and comment on those documents between now and then. That's really my presentation. I just ask that you, if you have any questions, ask me. We'll ask the public to comment as well. And then Carissa Stoney Cox is on the phone in case there's any project-related question that I don't know the answer to.
All right, thank you. Just sort of a quick exhibits are on page 25 and 26 of your packet. Again, basically distills down what we just heard, talks about the number of units, the kind of unit, the amount of money, that kind of stuff. And then page 26 has some more information about the process. And that kind of, so you want to take a minute to take a look at those two pages. It would probably be helpful if you have any questions.
Being the conduit issue, there's no liability, and we get to earn an annual fee. It's a 0.12% of 1.2% of the outstanding principal balance we get to earn. It's a
1/8 of 1%.
1/8 of 1%.
Correct. You were hoping for a typo.
Yeah.
And put the decimal in the right place.
You just move it around. Comments? Commissioners? Delphine, any comment?
No, just to reaffirm that this is something NRHA has done many times before. This is one of these great pass-through issuances. These funds that you earn as a fee are not restricted funds, so they do not have the strings attached that you see with HUD funds, for instance. So obviously something that we're very happy to help with, particularly as it helps continue the efforts with regard to the development and ongoing maintenance of the affordable housing stock in Norfolk. So these are the types of initiatives we're really happy to see, and we would love to see more of them. Lakewood Plaza Apartments is a great example of something that we would like to see more of.
Do I need to call the public hearing?
Yes, you need to open the public hearing, please.
All right. I'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this matter. Is there anyone Jen, if you could check
I'll check the hall.
the hallway, please.
I think the telephone, you have to dial *3 if you.
Yeah, we'll ask the
Yeah.
moderator to give us if anybody's asked. Question.
We have no one in the hall.
All right, if you could ask the moderator if anyone's come forward.
I am the moderator, and
Okay.
there are no calls, no questions, no comments online or audio.
All right, I'll go ahead and make an announcement and ask people if there is anyone online calling in who wants to make that, please do that now. Yes, Dick.
Motion, as soon as we clear.
No one?
There's no comments.
Then I will call the public hearing closed.
I make a motion, we accept this,
Resolution. A second?
second.
Ms. Carnes?
Mr. Albert,
Aye.
Ms. Harrington,
Aye.
Mr. Gresham,
Aye.
Ms. Courier,
Aye.
Mr. Benassi,
Aye.
Mr. Dillard,
Aye.
Mr. Masaccio.
Aye.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Have a great
No,
day.
thank you.
There's a lot of money in poverty, except for the poor.
That's exactly what my conclusion was. Look at this.
All right. Any other thing for development? I think we're done with that. Now let's go ahead and look at any of the finance. Any questions on that? Starts again on page 73. Take a moment to look at that.
So what happened to the receivables, Ron?
What,
What, I mean,
what do you mean, like the tenant?
yeah.
Oh, it's just that we saw that.
I mean, is it doubled? Is it?
I can't, if Donna's on, she may be able to answer. Donna?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
so,
account receivables.
so the account receivables kind of goes back to the conversation y'all were having earlier, that residents are not thinking that they have to pay their rent. We are much higher than we normally are for the month of June. We are 77% higher delinquency than we were at this time last year. We have taken a number of steps, as Ron mentioned, to communicate with the residents, and we will continue to look at other ways to communicate based on Mr. Albert's comments about the rent is still due and payable, and we are trying to reach out to all the residents that are delinquent to find out, one, why, two, if they have a rent adjustment that's not been reported, so we can recalculate their rent, and then three, to talk about options for paying the balances out that they owe.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Well, again, we'll be in the same area as almost everyone else, dealing with all of the issues that go around stay at home, work from home, closings, all of those kinds of things, and the income streams that all of that puts out. So our residents are going to be not much different than a lot of other folks. So again, we'll just struggle through it as far as the best we can. Okay, other comments on that? All right, then next we have the transportation. Hila? Hello.
Good morning,
Right on
everyone.
cue.
I'm gonna take this off because I can't see with it on.
Fog City.
Yeah, that heavy Delta tag holding me off.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to come talk to you guys about the transportation program. I'm gonna go ahead straight to the next slide.
What page is that?
77.
Can I click it up here?
If you click it up there,
It starts on 77, and then this goes through it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, so NRHA's transportation program. So since 2008, NRHA's transportation program has offered door-to-door transportation services for our residents. We have operated under two primary program objectives, and these are to improve the safety and mobility of older and disabled low-income residents living in subsidized housing communities, as well as to empower older and disabled residents to age gracefully in place while improving their quality of life. Transportation since 2008 has provided well over 366,000 rides, door-to-door rides to our residents. I reference transportation as kind of the heart of NRHA. Through transportation, our youth have received rides to places that they've never been, have been able to participate in summer camp activities, ice skating. We've taken a number of youth on college tours in state and out of state as well, and had a host of cultural enrichment activities, as well as got some of our youth employed. We've also helped our residents engage in a number of civic engagement, which is very important. City council meetings, a number of community meetings, MLK Day luncheons. We've also done transportation for training. Many of our residents go to and from GED programs, job skills trainings, Section 3 workshops, computer classes, you name it. Health and wellness. We have a core group of our senior residents that love to go to Prime Plus. So Prime Plus remains kind of our biggest group of residents that we transport, annual health fair, Senior Olympics, food. We take we have an ongoing schedule of residents that we take to grocery shop. They love also to go to Hobby Lobby and Roses. So we take, and we also have a number of residents that we take to farmers markets, both local and as far as Emporia and you name Cortland. Social outings, dinings, lunches, NRHA senior proms, annual Suffolk Peanut Festival, just to name a few, and employment. I skipped over that for a reason because as of last year, we did discontinue employment services, but before then, we were very proud to say that we provided door-to-door transportation for residents as they obtained employment for the first 3 to 6 months. We also have a number of residents who also participate in volunteer opportunities, whether it be through AARP, Friends of Norfolk, any opportunities they come across. And we were able to provide those opportunities for our residents. This is kind of one of my favorite pictures. This is a field trip. Oh, sorry, next slide. This is a field trip that one of our field trips that we took a group of residents to the farmers market, Grace and Emma's Farmers Market in Cortland, Virginia. As you see, they are very happy. 18 residents signed up. We transported 14 residents and the others followed in tow. They went to the farmers market first, and after they left the farmers market in Cortland, they went to Emporia to Carolina Barbecue and Chicken and enjoyed a Southern buffet that offered, as they made sure I said, that offered a wide variety of food to choose from. And then they stopped at Spivey's Meat Market, and residents got the opportunity to purchase fresh meats, fresh cheeses, and other options. So this is one of the examples of the ways that we work to keep our residents engaged and provide some cultural enrichment opportunities, as well as just a fun day, right?
I need to get that.
And they have great coupons. Next slide. So transportation has historically been funded using one source of funding. This source of funding initially started off being managed by HRT and was a part of the Federal Transit Administration source of funding. Our initial award was awarded in 2008 as the Job Access Reverse Commute, JARC grant. And we received that grant for 2008 to 2010, not 11. Under 11, we went to New Freedom, excuse that typo. So we collected a total of $624,000 in funds under that grant. Keeping in mind that funds awarded under this initial grant in 2008 were awarded to assist residents in obtaining and maintaining suitable employment by providing reliable and consistent transportation. So in 2011, this grant changed to the New Freedom Grant, and so did the objective of the grant. In 2011, from 2011 to 2015, NRHA's transportation program successfully was awarded over $1.4 million in funding under that grant. But the new objective was to support transportation needs of the elderly and disabled residents living in subsidized housing. Next slide. So in 2015 is when the grant transferred from HRT to the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation, and is now managed out of Richmond. So from 2015 to 2018, the New Freedom Grant changed to the New Freedom FTA Section 5317 or 5310, but don't worry about those last four digits. And we successfully were awarded $1.2 million under this DRPT grants. And again, the funding objective for this was to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities by removing barriers to transportation services and expanding the transportation and mobility options available. Next slide. So in 2019, we tried again. After having an audit in 2018. We had maybe about 5 people come down from Richmond's DRPT office and audit our transportation program. Through that audit, they noted some concerns, or not necessarily concerns, but questions related to who we were serving, as well as how we went about leasing, what we called leasing our own vehicles. After that audit, we had a couple of findings not related to who we were serving and or our leasing, and received kind of a favorable mention about how we went about creatively operating this program. That audit took place in December. We received our audit report around February, and by April, we were confronted with a whole new set of grant administrators. Everybody that came to visit us had took new positions in other companies or had promotions within that agency. So with a new set of eyes came a new set of questions. Some of the same questions as far as who we were serving. Under FTA, under their grant, they're not allowed to lease. We call it lease, but we're really purchasing the vehicles in accordance to the FTA requirements, but we lease them from our auto shop because in doing that, our maintenance is covered, our gas, our insurance. So we lease them kind of from ourselves. So we applied for this grant, again, the DRPT grant in 2019, and we received our first denial. And we were denied from this grant, for this grant, because they stated that the grant didn't align with the goals. an objective to provide transportation to elderly and disabled residents. They did not agree with our alignment of the ADA definition to meet the definition of residents who are living with disabilities. They also, again, mentioned that they prohibit leasing vehicles under this grant. So we came before you, we reported a number of changes that we were going to make to align to this funding, including the suspension of workforce transportation, better partnerships with our partners who can document disabilities, like senior services, the Norfolk CSB, and increased activities or ridership opportunities for our senior residents to kind of fill the void, and provide more transportation opportunities for that population. We reduced our hours, we reduced our capacity quite a bit, and we looked at really how we were funding transportion, the least thing. So in 2020, the FY 2020 application went in, and in this application, we addressed that we made all of these changes. And we also submitted a secondary application for capital funds to change over all of our fleet of vehicles, because we knew that there was some concern that our fleet, both internally and externally, that our fleet did not necessarily align with the needs of our residents as it related to accessibility. We only have one wheelchair accessible van, or a bus. So in the 2020 application, we did request to change over. So we requested funds to purchase new vehicles, wheelchair accessible vehicles. And a little over a month ago, we received our second denial for the FY 2020 funds. They expressed some concerns that we were unable to meet 100% accessibility, and that we were unable to really meet the full demand of the need in our community as it relates to transportation services for residents who are elderly and disabled. We also mentioned that we utilize our vehicles to provide youth with opportunities during the off times. They weren't too happy about that. And they did not, they felt like we could have had more effort, we could have made more effort to partner with HRT. We did articulate that we met with HRT. We invited HRT to, I think it was Sykes, one of our mid-rises. We talked about some challenges with HRT as it relates to accessibility of bus stops in Grandy and some of our other communities where the bus stops are on main streets and residents would have to walk quite a bit just to get to the buses. But they felt like we should have, could have done a little bit more to meet that objective. So in February of 2020, I came before you begging and pleading for some money to continue operating transportation services. NRHA Commission resolution was approved allocating $210,000 to continue to provide transportation to our elderly and disabled residents to cover a gap period of January 20th through June 2020. Which was January 20 was when our FY 18 funds actually ended. So where we are right now is transportation's current operation status is that we have 2 full-time staff, 1 supervisor, and 1 full-time transportation aide, as well as 4 part-time transportation aides. Our current fleet includes 1 New Freedom bus and 3 vans. Again, to note, the New Freedom bus is the only wheelchair accessible vehicle. Our operating hours are considered Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And our current operating status cost us $266,527 per year. Our target population at this time is elderly and senior residents, and we can average about 894 rides or 78 riders per month at this current capacity. And just to note, we kept it at our target population at elderly and seniors based on our attempts to modify the program to meet the grant requirements. But one of the pros is that we do have the capacity to offer workforce transportation and could meet maybe approximately a 10% increase in ridership for workforce if that is approved.
Does workforce include training work, to training centers?
Yes. So we consider workforce not just the 6 months of employment, but the any training or we'll take you to the DMV if that's what you need for your employment. So any provision that helps you get it.
So, do I have the math right? The current operating cost at $266,000, and we did 894 rides.
Correct.
Can I tell you that equals to $300 a ride?
Yes.
That's shocking.
That's per month.
Oh, that's per.
It's per month.
Oh.
Not annually.
Oh, thank you.
That's per month.
Even so, I want to say something about that because, one, I totally, vehemently disagree with the audit. I've had and seen similar things like that where somebody doesn't sort of hold you to the letter of the objective and misses the whole objective altogether. And I know the value of both quality of life benefit that people get from that, and I know the value of stimulating engagement in communities by having that option available. And I would say to you that had we not given you that money in February, I would have led the charge to try to get it for you. I believe in this. I know that a lot of times you can't qualify things like this, and Ken and I will have lunch. I'll help him understand this. You can't qualify things like this in pure dollars and cents. It's one of those, what we call social return on investment.
Return, yes.
And you have to qualify it as it relates to the social return on the investment. And it has multiples where it keeps giving. It's kind of the gift that keeps on giving. And I'm gonna go one step further for you. My church has a handicapped accessible van that we service every month. We keep it in tune, and it just sits in the back of the parking lot week after week after week with no use. And I would be willing to advance to the senior leadership and the pastor, making it available to the authority, or maybe I was about to say give it to you, but the minute I do, we'll start getting handicapped riders, and then everybody will say, well, you gave away the bus.
You gave away the bus.
So I would say I would be willing to engage in a contract where we would lease it to the authority for maybe $1 a year.
Lease.
Huh?
You said lease.
Well, we're not getting the money anyway.
No, I'm saying $1 a year. And to you, for your use, for whatever, and just have you all have it for the end. Then that way, if our, handicap ridership increases, I don't see a scenario that we're going to need it in the next 3 to 5 years, and at that point, it's obsolete anyway.
Yes.
And so I'm going to advance the idea of giving it to the authority. So I'm going to do that, and if you'll take it, I think I can make it happen. It's only valued at around $15,000 or so, but I believe in this.
I certainly appreciate that. And we really do too. And I know that many of us have actually used it, understand and wholeheartedly know the benefit. And you know how it is to kind of come back after a denial and try and convince them that you've done something different. And
Absolutely.
we definitely think that that's kind of the position that we're in right now. We made a lot of changes, and we've worked really hard to articulate those changes to meet this requirement. But
Thank you, Alfonso.
yes, thank you.
Because I've rode it many times.
Oh, yeah, I know the value, Rose. I know the value.
And, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I know the value. I see two ladies on that bus that I went to school with.
Oh.
That must make you a senior.
I have my wife the other day.
Now you see.
I give.
She said, no, but you are.
I just hang out with them.
So I was asked to present some options. The previous option, again, was our current funding option, our current funding status. And I did present a secondary option with a reduction in operating costs, a slight reduction. There's other ways that I can look at it. But in doing so, it would reduce our staffing capacity, and because of that, we would reduce our hours of operation, and possibly our distance of travel. So no travels to Portsmouth. We would look at reducing transportation to less than a 20. We currently have a 25-mile radius that we will travel, and we would limit capacity to accommodate workforce transportation under option number 2. Under option number 3, it increases our capacity. At one point, we had 6 part-time transportation aides. I'll be totally honest with you, based on our current fleet, that will be a challenge. And it will be a challenge to meet our highest peak based on our current fleet. But nothing beats a failure but a try. And this would afford us the ability to provide increased hours, maybe even later than 10 p.m. At one point, our last pickup was 2 a.m. in the morning. And on Saturdays and Sundays, we could look at operating hours on Saturdays and Sundays. This would allow us to provide transportation to both target populations, elderly and seniors, as well as return to work. And our ridership would increase to over 1,000 riders a month.
Thank you.
So I addressed some of the pros and the cons. Hours of operations extended, but one of the cons is our current fleet, and we will definitely look into your advanced or your offering at that point, which would help us out quite a bit. In closing, I want to say that for 30 years, NRHA has provided transportation to our residents in some way, shape, or form, whether it's bus tickets, handy ride tickets, picking them up in motor pool vehicles. This has been a commitment of us, from us as a service provider from our agency. The inception of transportation program 12 years ago helped us to remove many barriers. We live in one city, but it's a big city. And this helped us to provide opportunities for our residents to see things that they've never seen, to experience things that they've never experienced. As you said, it's so empowering to get a job and get there and not worry about how you're going to get to and from this job. Residents have stayed engaged in civic opportunities, and have contributed countless hours, volunteer hours, to their communities, thanks to transportation. As I stated before, I believe transportation is the heart of NRHA's service capacity and service initiative. And I hope that you guys consider the 3 options that were presented.
Super.
Questions? Yes.
So the program ended in June, correct?
Yes and no. We went out for COVID in March, so transportation added currently is suspended. We are working with some of our partners at Senior Services to look at a safe way to provide transportation during the COVID times. Right now, we're exploring the use of transportation to assist with grocery pickups, though.
Yes, Dick?
Are there any other, and I know this is getting into all the stuff you've been denied, I guess, but are there ways we can piggyback with other organizations, Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, any of their organizations? Because, if you can't get to a job, if you can't get to training, you're stuck. And if you're elderly, you're stuck. And I think all of us during the pandemic feel like we're stuck, but these are folks that are stuck even beyond the pandemic.
We definitely looked into that at the start of the year when we had to make the decision to suspend workforce transportation. We were confronted with a lot of, if you find a grant that supports workforce transportation, let me know. There's lots of opportunities to provide bus tickets, but not a lot of funding available to provide workforce door-to-door transportation. We have worked with some of our partners to kind of piggyback on, we've had some conversations as it relates to maybe Uber contracts and things like that, but nothing more has come to fruition. So yes, we could definitely continue to explore that. And we did have those talks in the beginning, but regionally, many of the providers we're all struggling with transportation for workforce.
Not related to what Dick is saying, but it is in a way. One of the things that I found throughout my career, I've worked in community development, human services my whole life. And one of the things I've found, and I know Suzanne appreciates this, is there's a culture of poverty that most of us really don't fully understand. I mean, it just, for us, certain things seem logical and natural, but there's a culture of poverty that inculcates people, encompasses communities,
isolate,
and literally paralyzes people. And so a simple thing like getting to work when transportation is not available, it's not just available. It's not that I don't have a car. It's that the doggone bus is so far, and the route that the bus does go doesn't get me close to the
3
job.
hours to
There's
my
not the
commute.
frequency and the cost of the bus consistently when I don't have it. I mean, all of those multiples. But when you never fully kind of engage that culture, it's hard to conceptualize. And so we have to keep educating our friends, keep trying to raise people out of poverty so that they start gaining confidence in the larger system. And so they say, yeah, I can catch a train here. I can invest in a car. I can buy a home. And so, this work that you and Ron and Donna engage in is not for the faint of heart. I'm telling you, it is, you get big successes, but boy, you can get some blows sometimes that are bone crushing. And take it from me, I know.
Rose?
Since the shopping, it was Save-A-Lot closed down. It is a desert there. And I worry about the seniors that can't really get out to go and shop. And I was wondering if they order their food from like Walmart, and will you all, and they can't go, will y'all be able, you think we set up some kind of way you could pick up one?
Yes, actually, we have extended a request to Walmart to designate pickup times for us. Right now, if we go, we can only kind of do one pickup time per hour. And so we're trying to say, can you give us 5 slots at 8 a.m.? And we'll come pick up 5 residents' groceries at 8 a.m. and maybe even transport 1 or 2 as we go. So we have put that request out to Walmart, and we will work with our senior and disabled residents through, and TMCs have offered to assist us in helping to get them registered to online shop. It's a different experience.
Yeah, I know it is.
That was the issue with the shopping center HRV funded in Grambling, Louisiana. Grambling hadn't had a supermarket in 30 years. And the nearest one was 20 miles away. And the university, Grambling University, would take a bus 2 days a week and shuttle the students to the grocery store 20 miles away.
Well, Hila, what do you want us to do about these options?
Review them, and
There's no, not asking,
there's no motion on the table, right? Yeah.
Okay,
I got a question.
sure.
I guess this is gonna be funded with reserves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with,
That's uncomfortable
and
under our.
if Virginia's on, if she wants to, Virginia, if you wanted to talk about that part of it.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, uh-huh.
Yes. The proposals on the table would be funded from reserves. The thought was to get the feel of the board about what scenario they like. Then I will work with the budget office to come up with a proposal. We'll go run it through the Budget and Finance Committee, let you know what impact this has on the reserves, and then we'll go from there. So we were planning to do that at the Budget and Finance Committee in next month.
Okay.
And the thought is, even if we fund it, you're still gonna apply. So
We'll keep trying, yeah.
We'll keep trying to apply, so it may just be for this period of time, and then when it's open
That's what I'm
to
thinking.
apply again, we will apply.
May I ask a question? Is there any consideration, and I'm going to look at Rose and Alfonso, is there any consideration to the people who use this putting in a little bit towards it? You know, or to have an understanding of how much this is costing or anything like that? I mean, I wonder if they think this is an easy sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you that from my perspective, I can tell you that if I were running that program, I wouldn't engage that. And the reason is because it's not one of those reciprocal kinds of services that, you know, you got to get your benefit from the end user in a different way, as opposed to, say, a fee. I think that's where you're going. Can you either give me some sweat equity? Can you give me a small fee? Can you find another way to maybe work in maintenance of the bus or something? You know, I think all those things are great ideas, but I think if you tie it to the ridership, you're going to lose the ridership. And I think the strength of it is that while the people are utilizing this, then you can change their mindset about what's beneficial. Not so much the seniors, but the other people. Right? And so I think you can use the opportunity to engage them, but it's not a reciprocal kind of, you know.
Yeah, I worry about folks, and coming up with something you said earlier, that when they get into, maybe if they graduate out of public housing, sure, and they lose these services, they have no idea that they were, you know, what they were getting.
And that's what they're doing, preparing them for that.
Yeah, somehow or another, giving them knowledge of, you know, this is being provided, but this is, you know, in the real world, this is costly. And I certainly would, my mind says prioritize towards workforce development, and then next would be seniors, and then on down until you get to youth. All of them have important needs, but prioritizing what's good for society, that would be.
I think it would be instructive if, from time to time, either board or group of youth there, that usually to hear this conversation, so that they do understand that these things come at a price, and you can't take this for granted, and you really have to sow into something, and what pay it forward, so to speak, so that somebody else benefits as you are benefiting.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like when we took away basketball summers ago.
That's right.
You know, because there was no payback for us, but boy, for society, giving the youth something that was positive to be doing was a great loss.
One of the examples about youth ridership is this last year, as we do every year, we provided a number of summer camp opportunities. We registered a lot of youth for summer camp, and because we could not transport them, our attendance was down by 60%.
Wow.
I tell you, man,
This is Joe. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I know you said that you guys, can you let me know offline who you're dealing with at DRPT? And I think I know HRT has a good relationship with them. I know we can get a support letter and probably change that relationship that you guys have with DRPT. And secondly, I heard someone say something about the food desert. We're working, and I don't know if NRHA is involved, but Amy Inman of Norfolk is working with HRT to create a free pilot program to get people from the public housing in that food desert to Walmart. So maybe you want to double back with Amy Inman and see, because I know they're doing the funding and we're providing the service, and that should be coming online within the next 2 weeks.
Thank you, Joe. I'll definitely get that to you.
Dick said you were asleep.
Alfonso said you were asleep.
I think this is the exact conversations that tell us what I told Marcus Jones when he first came on back in the city, that the city has enough money. We have enough money to do anything. We don't have enough money to do everything. And I think that's where we're now. We're at the point now with the reserves being as low as they've ever been, with the demand being as high as it's ever been. We're going to have to make some of these decisions, which are, we can't do everything. And so I would hope that through the Budget and Finance Committee and other these discussions, we have a realization that we can't do everything.
We're gonna make it work.
But we need to do some things, and we will not be able to, I don't think, be able to do everything. So just keep that in mind as we move forward.
Take it from the big hand boy. We're gonna make it work.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have Ms. Thomas coming on now. There's Kim.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning.
Thank you so much.
All righty, we're gonna jump into this. I'm gonna try to do this with my mask on because I feel like I'm breaking the law if I take it off. And I don't need any trouble in my life right now. So,
Any more trouble?
Any more trouble, let's be specific. So I've come to you this morning with an agenda item to really talk about something that's already been discussed, but we need to settle on the process by which we enact this item. Back in on December 13th at the board meeting, a resolution was presented to the commissioners in terms of submitting a significant amendment to our annual plan to HUD. There were two items that were entailed in the significant amendment. And allow me to do my new fashion trend, put on my glasses. The two items included final implementation of public housing over income limit under the HOTMA, or Housing Opportunities Through Modernization Act of 2016. This basically said that over income policy states that after family income has exceeded 120% of area median income, that for 2 consecutive years, we as the Housing Authority must charge the family a monthly rent equal to the applicable fair market rent within 6 months of the second income determination. So we were looking at the fact that there were, at that time, 2, and I think it's just 1 household that exceeded 120% of area median income. And that HUD was instructing us to come up with a policy to address it. What we decided was we would actually phase out the families paying based on income and actually get them adjusted to fair market rent, because the other option was we could actually exit them from the program. And we didn't want to do that. The other policy that was entailed in that resolution was to revise subsidy standards for low-income public housing determination of total tenant rent payment and the housing choice voucher income, which basically talked about alimony and child support, that we would revise the policy to state that income would be projected by averaging the most current 6 months of payments for 12 months. Previously, it was 3 months. So 2 very minor policies in theory. We had done all of the work to get this brought before you as the board resolution. That included having a public comment period for 45 days, convening the RAD board, the Resident Advisory Board, to make a comment on these 2 policies with their recommendations, and the RAD board was in favor of both, and also submitting the significant amendment to the commissioners for a resolution, board resolution. That was done, and you all did approve the resolution December 13th. So now let's fast forward. I submitted the significant amendment resolution with all supporting documents in early February to our HUD field office. But as of today, we have not gotten a response back from HUD. Our hope was that we would be able to enact this policy as soon as possible, in particular, the policy in terms of the 120% fair market rent, because HUD informed us that that policy should have been in play as of March 24th, 2019. So we are effectively already a year behind on that policy. Since we have not heard back from our Richmond field office, I am bringing this matter back in front of you simply because the HUD waivers that have been released due to the COVID-19 pandemic now states that a Board of Commissioners can make approvals of resolutions on significant amendments without having go through the regular processes that we would normally do had there not been a pandemic. But I feel good in saying we've checked all the boxes. We even convened the public hearing prior. It's just that we had a non-response from HUD. And at this point, I think it's been 3 layers of communication from NRHA to HUD, which included myself, Donna, and Ronald Jackson. And the 3 of us have not heard back from them. So I am coming before you all to ask that we please approve the resolution under the HUD waiver, under the pandemic for COVID-19 stipulations, so that we can get these policies enacted. Typically, it takes 75 days for HUD to respond when we submit a significant amendment or a package such as this. We have succeeded or exceeded our 75-day time frame as of the submission of the first packet. And I'm open for discussion.
Okay, so what do we need to do?
As a commission body, it would be you all saying that you agree to the resolution that you've already agreed to, that you approve it, and I would have the draft resolution that the resolution that I gave you actually circulated again just for Ron's signature at this point with a new date, and then it would be charted that this will be part of our significant amendment policy to our current annual plan.
Ms. Carnes,
Yes, sir.
how is this all?
We can take a vote today to re-approve, in essence, the same language that you've already approved back in 2019 so that we meet the requirements.
Have we meant what we meant?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, back then you meant it, but it had to then follow the process of being submitted to the field office. So we would just now move forward based on your own authority as opposed to waiting for HUD response.
Okay.
So I'll move that we support the resolution.
Second?
Second.
Ms. Carnes?
Mr. Albert,
Aye.
Ms. Arrington,
Aye.
Mr. Gresham,
Aye.
Ms. Courier,
Aye.
Mr. Benesky,
Aye.
Mr. Dillard,
Aye.
Mr. Musacchio.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have now move on to new business. I'll ask our moderator if there are any questions or comments from the public.
There are no questions or comments from the public, but if the public would like to submit a question or comment, please press *3 or enter the question into your internet browser box at this time.
Okay, I'll hold it open while we discuss the next comment. Also, this is the time of the year that we reappoint the chair and vice chair. We will do that next month, just to give you a month to think about that kind of thing. But so we will have a vote for the chair and vice chair next month. And I will ask the moderator again, do we have anyone?
No questions or comments at this time.
Okay, then we'll move on then to the committee reports. They're on page 145 and then 159. Any comments?
Other than to say that it's good to be back in the routine, I guess, of staying up to date on the level of operations, both from the safety and housing standpoint and from the housing voucher, so. Thanks, Ron, for all that you all do behind the scenes to make these meetings happen.
Any other comments? I don't believe we have a closed meeting. Is that correct, Ms. Carr?
No, sir.
Right, then I'll ask for any final comments. Hearing none, I will call the July Board of Commissioners meeting to a close.
Okay.